Dear chess friends, welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to the most spectacular game from the FIDE Grand Swiss in 2023. We have here top GM from India, Arjun Erigaisi against the Grandmaster from Germany, Frederik Svane. This game that you see now, I think, has so many brilliant tactical elements. It has also a wild idea to stay with the king in the center. Also, beautiful theoretical novelty in the Ragozin defense. In my opinion, this game should be awarded at least one of the best chess games in this year for sure. How Arjun attacked here, how he produced really wild ideas. In my opinion, really, this should be also called the Arjun Erigaisi Immortal. Really crazy game. So, I'm not sure why this game hasn't been hyped up so far by the media. Probably if Magnus Carlsen would play such a brilliant game, I think this game would be all over the internet because this is a really an epic game. If I wouldn't tell you that this game has been played by two grandmasters, I think you would consider that this could be maybe even a stockfish game. How crazy this game is! Put your seatbelts on and enjoy in really spectacular game here played by Arjun Erigaisi against Frederik Svane. So let's see now what happened with the white pieces. Arjun Erigaisi opened with the move d4. We have knight to f6 by Frederik Svane. We have c4 and after e6, knight to f3, the counter Nimzo or Anti-Nimzo-Indian setup. We're not allowing, of course, to get pinned by the bishop after move knight to c3. After d5, we have a transposition into structures of the queen's game decline. And now after c takes d5, we have the exchange variation. After e takes d5, knight to c3, the game transposes now into the Ragozin defense, but of course, with the continuation c takes d5, so it would be then the exchange variation of the Ragozin defense. After bishop to b4, bishop to f4. This is now the standard line, very often played in top GM level. We have now knight to e4, pinning now the knight, and after rook to c1. Here, white is of course protecting now the knight, and basically there are two good approaches. You can of course play knight to d7, and also kingside castling immediately is perfectly fine. c5, if you are asking maybe yourself the question if c5 is a possibility, actually this is not so dangerous. We can splash the attack with d takes c5, then after something like queen to a5, look at it, we can even pick up this one. Even if you try knight to c3, then queen to e5 is, I think, immediately winning the game here for white. So black cannot just rush with the c5 attack, although it's a common motif by black in the Ragozin defense, but so far it wouldn't be possible. It wouldn't be the optimal continuation. So that's why here Frederik Svane continuing with the move knight to d7. We have knight to d2, continuing now the pressure against this annoying knight on e4. We have knight to d2. Also knight takes c3 is possible, but then after b takes c3, bishop to a3 and rook to b1. Basically white is continuing the game with a powerful central. Will eventually play e3, bishop to d3, slowly but surely in one moment maybe hit the center with move c4. I see one game in the database, it's Jeffrey Jeong against Darius Schwirtz, in which the game ended with a draw, so nothing spectacular also here for white, but black can defend his position. But as I said, also a different approach here by Arjun Erigaisi and Frederik Svane. So here Frederik Svane took out now the knight on d2 instead of this knight on c3. We have queen to d2, and after move c6 we have a3, kicking away the bishop, bishop to e7, and after move e3, knight to f6. Now comes already a stunner of the game here. Arjun Erigaisi in such a position goes all in with the move h4. And this approach I have only seen in a stockfish game. I've covered it here on my YouTube chess channel. Here's the link of the video. Please check it out. It's not the same position. It's of course not even the same setup. It's not, I think, even the same strategy, but Stockfish played also this ultra aggressive h4 approach against the Ragozin defense. In my opinion, this could be maybe a new method to handle this unpleasant opening by black. After move h4, what should you do? Here Frederik Svane says, okay, you are attacking me, but so far you don't have so many attackers. I'll simply castle. So Frederik castled, and here Arjun Erigaisi continues, of course, with move bishop to d3. What should black do? Here the game g6 was played, locking now simply the diagonal here for the light square bishop, but also this move g6 provokes further dark square problems in black's camp. You could maybe try here knight to h5 to maybe attack the bishop on f4, but then we'll play a little bit provocative here. This wasn't playing the game, but if you're asking yourself the question, what would have happened after knight to h5, then we play bishop to e5, and even if you pick up now the pawn on h4, then g3 is winning the game. Look at this. Even if you step back, then the knight is hanging here on h5. If you play f6, then we can still pick up the piece and then also this other piece. So really tricky stuff already with this aggressive approach with the move h4. So that's why here g6 was played by Frederik Svane, but now Arjun plays bishop to g5. This is also a well-known method to pick up now the knight on f6 and then to push the pawn further on h5, because the knight so far on f6 is controlling the h5 square. In the game, Frederik Svane tried a different approach. He tried rook to e8, which is also the suggested move by the top engine, trying of course to fix now the knight on e4, trying to liberate himself from the attack, liberate especially from the attack of the slice square bishop with knight to e4, then of course something like, I don't know, bishop to e7, queen to e7, and the rook on e8 and the queen on e7, then you would have a great protection of the e4 square. So although this square is three times attack, still would have 3-time protection with your pieces around the square e4. So that's now a liberating motif here created by Frederik Svane. We have f3 by Arjun Erigaisi, and now the fun really starts. So here after move f3, Frederik Svane plays maybe the first tiny little inaccuracy with king to g7. The suggested move by Stockfish is actually to play knight to h5. To get out of this mess, again simplify the game, because here this attack should be really considered as a dangerous one, because you have to block out now the further progress. After move knight to h5, the game still is very complicated. Probably Arjun would pull off here the move g4. As I said, this wasn't playing in the game, but I was curious what kind of a defense Black could have against this very unpleasant attack by White. After move g4, look at this, bishop to g5, h takes g5, still your knight is hanging. Knight to g3 is not working because you could simply rook to g1 and then the knight is out of game, so it's not working. After h takes g5, you have to play actually here knight to f4. And look at this, you cannot pick it up of course because of the rook activity, but now we step back with the bishop, and now after queen to g5, now we play queen to f2, and still, believe me or not, this would be very dangerous for Black. Black has to now finally to retreat, and now comes also a very interesting move f4, kicking away the queen. The queen cannot take here because you get simply rook to g1 and the queen is trapped. So this is really not working. So see here after f4, the queen has to step back to f6, and the engine considers this position to be equal, although Black is up a pawn, but still because of this potential h-file attack, still this is dangerous position. Still the slice square bishop, for instance, is much better. The knight is well placed, could maybe be included into the attack. So this would be still a dangerous attack by White for sure, but as I said, maybe defendable here by Black. So as I said, knight to h5 was actually the suggested move by top engines. But after king to g7, now Arjun pulls off a simple Stockfish 16 move, I would say. Here, Arjun plays the beautiful king to d1. Simply gets out of the mess in the center of the board, says now, I'll play king to c2, and I will continue now my pressure here on the g and h file, and there's nothing that you can do about it. Although still the game is pretty equal when it comes to computer relations, but now Arjun is showing really his mean plan. Really wild move, king to d1. Here the continuation, knight to g8, finally by Frederik Svane. He's finally trying to get rid of this dark square bishop, but of course the attacker keeps the pieces on the board. Bishop to f4, bishop takes h4, who cares? But now Arjun prepared e4. Really wild stuff. Look at this. With the king in the center, Arjun is letting now the position explode in the center of the board. As I said, if I would not say to you that this is a maybe, I don't know, Arjun Erigaisi, Frederik Svane game, you would say that this is Stockfish playing. Stockfish produces always these crazy ideas. Look at this. With the king in the center, Arjun is, as I said, trying to open the center. Really wild stuff. So what should Black do? Here in the game, bishop to e6 was played by Frederik Svane, which was simply not the best response. The best way here is to play the move h6, but still it gets very complicated. Look at this. We play e5, simply advance the pawn. You're trying maybe to trade off the bishops, but now we even support our bishop with the move g3. And still king to c2 is working and similar stuff, and then rook to g1. So this would be still, I think, unpleasant, really tough to handle here for Black. You cannot actually here after e4 take out now the pawn, because look at this, after knight to e4 you cannot pick up the pawn on d4. That's now the issue, because the queen was always overloaded to the defense of the bishop on h4. Really crazy stuff. And even if you try here maybe something like h5 to stop the progress, then still we play king to c2. Maybe you can step back, but now with g4 the position is exploding. So look at this, how dangerous, how brutal really this attack by Arjun Erigaisi. So you can maybe pick up the pawn, we kick away the queen, now we take, now we step back, and now look at this, with rook to g1. I would not love to play this game here from Black's perspective. I think you're getting destroyed in the next couple of moves for sure. So as I said, e4, such a brilliant plan, because after d takes e4 you cannot pick up now the pawn. As we said, the queen is simply overloaded to the defense of the bishop on h4. That's why here bishop to e6 was played by Frederik Svane, but now Arjun plays now again this idea, king to c2, h6, g4. Here Arjun is continuing the pressure, very wild stuff. And of course here Frederik is trying rook to c8, but this is simply too slow. You have to play, I don't know, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 moves in order to make a tiny little threat. Meanwhile, White's attack is much more progressive. Here Arjun locks out now the center, because with this strange position of the king, you don't want to have, of course, a center open. So that's why e5, very good move here by Arjun. So c5, we have bishop to e3, g5 here was played by Frederik Svane. We have king to b1, and after c takes d4, bishop to d4, knight to d7. So here Frederik Svane is trying to get at least somehow the pieces back into the game, and here Arjun pulls off another stunner of this beautiful and spectacular game. He plays now rook to h4. Really wild stuff. Look at this. After g takes h4, now comes the first I would say mistake here by Arjun Erigaisi. Still, I would not call it a mistake, because still, even after this move that Arjun played, still White has the attacking flow. White is still better. White has still the better continuation. But here Arjun played rook to h1, which was a little bit unnecessary. A better choice was simply to play f4 with the preparation to play f5. If you play here bishop to g4, look at this. This attack is simply too much to handle. You play h5, then we play f5. If you play here knight to f5, then bishop to f5 is simply winning the game. You cannot play even f6 here, because obviously, look at this, e takes f6 is going to happen. Even if you play here, I don't know, something else, if you step back, then f6 is going to happen. So it's simply too much pressure. Look at this, if you play e6, pardon me, maybe rook to g8 here to try maybe to compete on the g file, then we play here f6. Look at this, you have to step back. You're getting destroyed in the next couple of moves for sure. Or maybe you can try also here to move e6. You try maybe f6. Look at this, rook to g4 is here in the possibility, queen to g5. So I'm just showing you potential lines that could be possible. I wanted to show you how really tactically rich this position is. After king to h7, now we can attack the king, and now after a couple more moves you can get even checkmated by this beautiful bishop's activity. So really wild stuff. After potential move f4 that Arjun missed, he played another line, which is evaluated of course by the engine as an inaccuracy or something, but it's not a problem, because still White should be much better here. But here Frederik Svane immediately didn't react correctly. Knight to c6. The only way to stay somehow in the game is to compete on the h file. This was the must defensive move. Although, as I said, still White is much better because of this idea, knight to b5, with the idea, of course, to cement the position around the square d6. This would be then the octopus knight on d6. Very tough to handle. Still, there is now this idea to break and enter. So again, I think a devastating position here for Black. So as I said, this was maybe a tiny little better move here for Black, but here Frederik Svane played now knight to c6, and here bishop to f2 by Arjun. A beautiful, spectacular move, leaving simply the pawn on e5 unprotected, and also threatening to pick up now here the pawn on f3. But now Arjun Erigaisi played a beautiful bishop to h4. Look what happens if you play here knight to f3. This wasn't played in the game. After bishop to h4, f6 was played by Frederik Svane. If you play knight to f3, then there is this spectacular tactic with queen to h6. Really wild stuff. After king takes h6, now we play bishop to f6, and you're getting checkmated by this beautiful bishop's activity and by the rook on the h file. You can of course just cover, but it doesn't matter. It just prolongs the game for a little bit, and the game is over. here for black. Very, really crazy tactic. So after bishop to h4, Frederik Svane noticed that. He played now the move f6, but now queen to h6 anyway. Again, the same tactic is working if you play. Let's see it again because it's so beautiful. After king to h6, then bishop to f6. Again, a beautiful and spectacular checkmate by the bishop's activity and by the rook on the h file. After queen to h6, that's why here Frederik Svane had to play king to f7, but now bishop to g6. The follow-up, the beautiful follow-up here by Arjun. Look at this. You have to accept now the challenge, knight to g6, but of course it comes with a check. King to h7, king to f8. Here, Arjun picks up now finally the knight. What should you do? Of course, there is a threat of bishop to f6. You don't have even time here to play rook to f6. You would love, of course, maybe white to play here b takes c3. Then after something like queen to b6, maybe there are some perpetuals or something. But here, white doesn't have to react. White can simply play the move bishop to f6, and of course, with the obvious threat here, rook to h8 or queen to g7. Many checkmate ideas here for white. So after move queen to g6 that Arjun played here, Frederik Svane tried rook to c6, trying to control, of course, the 6th rank, but of course bishop to f6 first. We have bishop to f5 here. Frederik tried to battle somehow, tries of course to pick up now here the piece on f6, but Arjun calculated everything in a good way. Arjun played first of all queen to f5. We have rook to f6. We have now rook to h8, king to e7, and after knight to d5, queen to d5 here that Frederik Svane played. Now rook takes e8, and in this particular position, Frederik Svane resigns. So there was nothing that you can do. Look at this, king to e7, this king is paralyzed, knight to d5, simply too dangerous here. If you don't react, then you get checkmated. You could maybe here survive with queen to f6, but again, rook to h8 is very dangerous, so it's, in my opinion, again, not working. So again, with the tactic knight to d5, it's a devastating position again here for black. Cool. Beautiful game here by Arjun Erigaisi. I'm not sure why no one talked about this game, because in my opinion this is really brutal. Playing h4 in the beginning in such a seemingly static position, in sort of a, I don't know, Carlsbad structures almost here. h4 immediately, very spectacular game here played by Arjun Erigaisi, and then with the king maneuver, king to d1, king to c2. Really one of the best chess games, I think, in 2023 for sure. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. If you want to see more epic chess games here on my YouTube chess channel, check out our commented chess games here. Here's the playlist. And if you want to see the brutal stockfish games like Arjun Erigaisi played today, check out here our commented chess games played by computers, with some beautiful games played by Stockfish, Alpha Zero, Lila Zero, and many more. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say? Chess is the best, of course.